How can India win more Olympic medals? That's the million-dollar question. For a country of 1.3 billion people, India won a total of 36 medals in 120 years of Olympic history. Why is the second most populous country and the sixth largest economy in the world ranked 48 in the list of medal-winning nations at Tokyo Olympics? There are 61 sports federations in India. More than half of them are run by politicians with scant experience in sports. The Chief Minister of Assam heads the Badminton Federation. Kempa Govindaraj, an MLC from Karnataka, heads Basketball Federation. Parminder Singh Dhindsa, former Finance Minister of Punjab, heads Cycling Federation. Praful Patel, former Civil Aviation Minister, heads Football Federation. MP Pratap Singh heads Judo Federation. Punjab Chief Minister's son Raninder Singh heads National Rifle Association. Former Chief Minister of Goa Digambar Kamath heads the Swimming Federation. I am getting tired. MP Achyuta Samata, volleyball. MP Birendra Singh, weightlifting. MP Brijbhushan Singh, wrestling. MP Anil Jain, tennis, and many more clueless politicians and IAS babus are running our sports organizations, which are mostly party loyalty rewards. Let us take the specific case of tennis. All India Tennis Association (AITA) is the organization that promotes the game of tennis in India. BJP MP Anil Jain is its president. This politically savvy organization knows how to play the power game. They keep both the BJP and Congress leaders on their side. They had Yashwant Sinha of BJP and SM Krishna of Congress as life presidents in the past. AITA organizes tournaments across India and collects money in the form of entry fee from the youngsters that are into the sport. When a few private entities tried to organize tournaments, AITA passed a bizarre and draconian order banning all private tennis tournaments across India, across all of India. They don't seem to have any interest in promoting tennis, but their express purpose is to protect their bloated bureaucracy and steady revenue stream that it collects from young players. AITA in its notice said, it has been observed that there are private tennis tournaments being organized in India. Without prior approval, such tournaments are not permitted. Players, coaches, academies, parents abstain from organizing, failing which AITA would be constrained to consider further action against the players, including derecognition from AITA. The audacity of this organization to put a blanket ban on all tournaments across India speaks volumes about why our tennis players can't win a single medal at the Olympics. A school, a college, a small community in a remote village cannot pull 10 kids together and conduct a friendly tournament. This is like putting a ban on friendly gully cricket matches. These mafioso politicians actually believe they have the right to decide who can and cannot play tennis in India. That speaks volumes about the license and regulation Raj mindset of these politicians. Recently, Deccan Chronicle ran a front page story titled The Olympic Loss. Deccan Chronicle learned that when a coach in Hyderabad tried to organize a tournament, the AITA's local affiliate Telangana State Tennis Association arm twisted the coach saying he cannot conduct the tournament. They then demanded money for permission to conduct the tournament. This is nothing but collecting hafta. Interestingly, the Telangana State Tennis Association is a family enterprise. It was run by late Raja Narasimha Rao from 1958 to 2006, that's nearly 5 decades. After a brief gap, his son Ashok Kumar took the reins and he has been at the helm for over a decade now. What does our Prime Minister Modi think about these dynasties? He spoke against them in a public rally.
वहां आपके बेटे का कोई नंबर लगेगा क्या? आपकी बेटी का नंबर लगेगा क्या? लगेगा तो ये बाप बेटा, बाप बेटा, बाप बेटी, बाप बेटी, बाप बेटा। फिर आपकी बारी कहां से आएगी? कभी बाप बेटा आएंगे, कभी बाप बेटी आएगी, आपके बेटों का नंबर नहीं लगेगा, क्योंकि इस वंशवाद ने लोकतंत्र की जड़ों में दिमक लगा दी है, दिमक लगा दी है।
Modi asked the voters, are your children not capable? Don't they deserve to hold important positions? Determined to end Congress and other parties' Baap Beta, Baap Beta, Baap Beta system, he brought in his own Baap Beta, Baap Beta, Baap Beta system. Ending a decade-old hold that Congress and allies had over India's cricketing governing body, BCCI, Modi placed his Home Minister Amit Shah's son at the helm of BCCI. But there is a small hitch. In 2013, after the IPL betting scandal broke out, it has become clear that BCCI is ridden with corruption, nepotism, and is being ravaged by politicians. The Supreme Court stepped in and appointed the Justice Lodha Committee for recommendations. One of the recommendations was to stop the long tenured positions in sports federations. One can be in state or national federations for a period of 6 years and then they have to get out for at least 3 years. This recommendation was approved by the Supreme Court. Any change to the BCCI rules must be approved by the Supreme Court. Shahanshah Jai Shah has finished his 6-year tenure between his stint at Gujarat Cricket Association and later with the BCCI. But he refuses to vacate the post. Instead, he got the rules amended so that he can continue to cling on to his post. However, all amendments to the BCCI charter require Supreme Court approval. As a result, the case went to the Supreme Court and the government kept on taking adjournments as a delaying tactics. A vexed Supreme Court said, we can't keep adjourning like this. We have adjourned 6 times. Don't adjourn. We will not adjourn it. List on March 23rd is what the judge said. Guess what? On March 23rd, it was adjourned again. The case came up for hearing on April 14th. And now you can guess, adjourned again. Thanks to legal maneuvering to delay the hearing, Amit Shah's son continues to enjoy his post in direct violation of BCCI rules.
वहां आपके बेटे का कोई नंबर लगेगा क्या? आपकी बेटी का नंबर लगेगा क्या? लगेगा तो ये बाप बेटा, बाप बेटा, बाप बेटी, बाप बेटी, बाप बेटा. फिर आपकी बारी कहां से आएगी? कभी बाप बेटा आएंगे, कभी बाप बेटी आएगी. आपके बेटों का नंबर नहीं लगेगा क्योंकि इस वंशवाद ने लोकतंत्र की जड़ों में दिमक लगा दी है, दिमक लगा दी है.
Incredible, no? I get a kick out of watching this part of the video over and over again. The irony in that speech is too sweet to ignore. Heavily regulated Indian education system too is another reason for loss of talent in sports. My children play tennis and I've seen many bright players with tremendous potential quitting the game when they turn 14 or 15. The road to college is laid by the government in the form of entrance examinations like the EAMCET, IIT and NEET. Private and public universities have little to no freedom in selection of the candidates. A student's overall development in sports, art, music, social work, leadership, communication are not even a consideration for admission. All you need is a rank which is achieved by studying in the rote method. In other countries, students with a sports background are welcomed with open arms and are offered scholarships and free education. So let us go back to our million-dollar question. How can India win a lot more Olympic medals? Why not look at the most successful Olympic nations, China and the United States? China won a total of 88 Olympic medals while the US won 113 in Tokyo. Can India learn something from these two countries? Let us start with China. The Chinese sports industry is tightly controlled by its government. China runs its sports industry the way it runs its communist government, that is, via a central command and control system. The Chinese government carefully selects the Olympic sports categories it will participate in. It picks events where there is less competition like trampoline, or events where more medals are at stake like gymnastics, weightlifting and diving, or where it has an inherent advantage like badminton, table tennis, judo and taekwondo. Then it starts training its players from a very early age with a razor focus on Olympic gold. The line between training and torture is blurred in Chinese Olympic training camps. Daily Mail ran a story on Nanning Gymnasium, one of the many ruthless training camps in China. Children as young as 5 can be seen doing impossible routines on bars, rings, and mats. A child cries in pain while her instructor stands on her legs. 5-year-olds can be seen hanging off beams. Children are put through punishing exercises to toughen them up. This is the price these little children pay to bring glory to their country and to help their communist dictators assert their place among global powers. But is torturing these little children for national glory morally acceptable? Is fudging their dates of birth and putting underage children like He Ke-shin in the world arena a fair practice? India Today magazine praised China, saying on all the counts that add into producing Olympic winners, talent identification, planning, funding and training, China proved to be more determined than any of its rivals to get the formula just right. The difference between 51 golds and 1 gold lies merely in the willingness to perfect the formula and execute the plan. India is increasingly moving towards a Chinese model. More government money, identifying athletes early and training them, picking winners and losers. But wait a minute. This is not the only way to win in the Olympics. There is a country with absolutely no central planning and absolutely no government investment, and it has been winning medals for decades. That country is the United States. The United States doesn't even have a sports ministry. The US government hardly spends any money on sports, and athletes are sponsored and trained by either private enterprises or universities. The United States Olympic Committee is a federally chartered non-profit organization that does not receive any financial support from the government. USOC is tasked with organizing athletes that represent the country at the Olympic Games. So how does a country that has a quarter of the population of China, doesn't spend any public money, win so many medals? In America, the government does not decide who becomes an athlete and in what sport. Children, parents, coaches and their passion in the absence of coercion is the secret of American success. Private companies in America have turned the sport into a profit-making enterprise. As a result, taxpayers are not burdened with training these athletes. So what can India learn from the Chinese and the American models? India is a third world country. Spending large sums of taxpayer money for international bragging rights is unacceptable. Politicians and bureaucrats sitting on federations deciding the fate of who plays and who doesn't play is wrong. The United States in the arena of sports offers the best playbook in the world. We can simply copy them, get rid of politicians and bureaucrats from all the federations, including the Indian Olympic Committee, create a good charter of management and make all these federations truly independent. Allow commercialization of sports in the universities and reward well-rounded children with admissions into reputed colleges. Encourage sports in corporate social responsibility funding. In 2019 and 20, central government allocated 2,826 crore rupees for sports budget. Compare that with 18,655 crores spent by companies on corporate social responsibility in the financial year 2019. Even if corporations spend a fraction of this money on sports, we will see spectacular results. The answer to India's Olympic glory is to take the government out of sports. Allow public and private universities to choose students based on all-round performance rather than a rote entrance exam-based system which discourages participation in sports. Encourage commercialization of sports. Push companies to spend their CSR budget on sports.